Keep that applause going for Raymond Chang, president at Agrify, for another company presentation. Let's give it up.
So I know it's getting kind of late. 2:30 is probably getting towards the end. Really want to appreciate all of you guys for sticking around and listen to my presentation. So my chief science officer was at a conference in Michigan. And one of the questions that was actually asked by the audience was, why is it that we get so many of these repeat customers, but very rarely do we get actually 3 or 4 peak customers? And the overall consensus was that consumer, they try your product once, they love it, and they come back and do that repurchase. And if the second time around, they don't get the same experience, guess what happens? They switch. Now, there's been a lot of talk about building brands, but the truth of the matter is, without being able to deliver good, consistent products over and over and over, it's really impossible to really thrive and build and sustain in this industry. So, what did I just do? Okay, here we go. Green button, sorry. Now, let's look at why. I mean, this is a pretty traditional grow room. And I remember the first time I walked into one of these, I was actually obviously wowed by it. But, you know, in a room like this, I would argue that it's probably very difficult to actually get consistency out of it. Now, first of all, you're losing probably half of that vertical space. Half of the vertical space is not being utilized. Secondly, the lights are actually hung from the ceiling, away from the plants, right? So guess what happens? There's actually a lot of energy loss, a lot of energy inefficiencies, right? And it actually forces the plants to really grow its stems, right, to reach towards the lights, right? Now, in a room of this size, it's really virtually impossible to control the environment so tightly. I mean, just look at this room. I am sure the temperature over here is probably a few degree difference from, for example, where my good friend Brad is sitting on the over there at the corner, right? It's just impossible to really kind of dial it in. And you also got humidity problems. You got VPD, and then airflow. The fans are sitting next to it. Obviously, probably the plants that are close to the fans are getting better airflow, right? But it's just impossible to actually really dial it in and provide, you know, a degree of consistency if you're actually growing in a room of this size. And let's think about it further. How about biosecurity risk? How about the fact that you actually have to move all these racks to actually get to the plants? It's actually very labor intensive, right? Now, there's got to be a better way to grow. And here we go. This is Agrify's solution. So we decided that it's time to provide the next generation of grow system. These are our proprietary vertical farming units. Now, immediately, each one of these doubles the square footage. Every VFU is actually 2 levels of canopy growth spaces. It's individually controlled. And this is where we actually bring in the fertigation line, irrigation line, CO2. And it's modular, and it's scalable. You could actually triple stack, providing 6 levels of grow spaces. And depending on the size of the facility, depending on the setup of the facility, right, it could be, for example, 8 by 10, or if you have a different dimension, maybe 20 by 20. But the most important part of it is this. In each of these VFUs, the environmental setting could be completely different from the one next to it. Why is that important? Because we believe that every strain, every genetic, actually has its unique optimal grow plan. Growing Purple Punch, I can guarantee you, will be very different from growing Lemon Haze, right? And we start out by figuring what I call it the optimal grow plan for each of these strains. And once you figure that out, the system locks it up and it provides the same grow environment over and over and over. It also allows you to go from maybe a monthly or a weekly harvesting to a perpetual harvest schedule, because literally each one of these VFUs could be 1 week apart. And what does that do? Just-in-time management of your inventory, and also smooth out your labor requirement. And you can also plan your production planning better so that you can see what's happening on at the dispensary front and adjust your production schedule accordingly. But most importantly is the level of consistency. Now, this page, we're talking about 3 different strains: candy cane, lemon haze, something blue. We're talking about several strains, multiple batches of production. Look at candy cane. In the last 10 harvest batches, we have less than 0.67% variation in cannabinoid, less than 0.08% of variation in terpene. Lemon haze, the other one, 0.38% variation cannabinoid, less than 0.02% in terpene. I challenge you to go out to any of the master growers in the world today to try to compete against these numbers. And here's the thing: 10, 12, 7 different batches. These numbers were collected not over a 2-year period, right? Because in the traditional rooms, right, you could probably only get about 4 or 5x turns per year. You get 12 harvest batches of lemon haze in one of our customers' facility in 1 month. Because the VFUs were actually scheduled, right, a couple weeks apart. The amount of data that we're collecting from our customers is enormous. We're talking about 1.5 million sets of environmental data on an annual basis per VFU. Now, this is another shocking chart. Same customer. Just look at the last 2. It's actually exact same strain. Through a couple rounds of reiteration of optimization, it went from 62 grams per square foot to now over 85 grams per square foot. Where the industry today, maybe around 40 to 50, right? So you have a situation here that on a per square foot basis, we're almost at 2x of the industry. And on top of that, if you can actually triple stack our VFUs, right? You turn every square foot to 6. So think about the ROI. 6 times 2. You could get as much as 12x biomass production out of that same facility. And don't forget the highest level of consistency. Now, we believe that everything should be deeply rooted in science, using data and technology to leapfrog and move forward in this industry. It could be, if you're about to, for example, get into New York State, if you're going to basically build your facility the same exact way as everybody else, how are you going to differentiate? Now, let's elevate this a little bit higher. This is one of our customers in Massachusetts, 50,000 square feet facility, and they show up with us at our doorstep and say, you know what, we're so proud of our new design, right? Multi-rooms, light bench style grow, and we have it perfectly done, right? And it's okay, fine. That 50,000 square feet of grow space, facility, only gives them roughly about 16 to 18,000 square feet of canopy grow space. This is our redesign. Double stacking the VFUs. 50,000, same 50,000 square foot footprint. Immediately, we triple the amount of canopy grow space. So we went from 16 to over 48,000 square feet of canopy. Right. Let's look at the ROI. If they actually went out and built the traditional way, which is the middle column, at $275 per square foot, up or down, depending on how much you want to put in there, that would have cost them somewhere around 16.5 million, roughly. But again, you would only buy them 16,200 square feet of canopy. And again, using the industry average of 0.463 pound per square foot, that would generate roughly about $22 million of top line. And again, I'm using industry average, somewhere between $460 to $520 per pound, depending on what you put in there, but that's probably sort of the range, right? They would be looking at an $18.9 million EBITDA, which is not bad. But again, you're depending on the master grower and everybody else to do everything right. Our solution, we built it out. Yes, it does cost more. Will be $27.6 million. But it will get you 3x the amount of canopy grow space. And in this model, we assume we hit 0.609 pounds per square foot. And by the way, I told you, the latest number is already showing 0.85, right? But let's assume that we just use 0.6 pounds per square foot. At a $327 per pound, you're looking at a $78 million EBITDA. 6.5x out of that exact same facility with a little bit more than 1.5x build-out cost. And the best part about this is the following. If you don't have 27.6 million, you don't have to do it in one go because everything is modular. Under the same scenario of basically providing our customers with 16,200 square foot of canopy grow space, we actually shaved off more than $5 million. So on a square foot by square foot basis, right, it's much cheaper to build. And once you've built it all out, it's more than 6.5x your return on investment. Now, we also know that the industry is also lacking capital. So we actually come to our partners with a total turnkey solution. We would actually finance the entire build out. And we get into a long-term partnership, and we get paid by the pounds. And if you're interested in that, I'm happy to discuss that more. Very recently, Agrify announced our first acquisition as a public listed company. We acquired Precision Extractions, as well as Cascade Sciences. And the reason why we did this is, if you look at what's happening on the shelf today, there's no doubt that Cannabis 2.0 products are gaining traction. Even though dry cut flowers still pretty much dominates, right, the majority of the market share, but consumer preferences as well as behaviors are shifting. If you think inconsistency is a problem, right, around biomass, the dry flowers, I can tell you that is probably 10 times worse, right, on the concentration side. Think about it. If you start out with, let's just call it 20%, 15% to 27% variability on THC, on the biomass, you're taking it through a concentration process, which is extraction, right? And then you put all that oil into several hundred gummies. Problem just magnified. And that's why you hear these stories all the time that you take one gummy, you don't feel a thing. Next time you go back, it knocks you out. Now, we want to bring another level of consistency all the way to the finished product. This acquisition allows us to do exactly that. Complete turnkey solutions on the extraction side. And what this would allow us to do is we can start out with the best quality, most consistent biomass on the cultivation side, moving through this entire extraction piece, being able to tag on our brands to guarantee the best products for the consumers. This acquisition, in our opinion, makes a lot of sense. It's immediately accretive. The company is expecting $40 million revenue, which add on top of our numbers, it almost doubles the size of the company. And now we have an even more comprehensive and vertically integrated solutions for all of our customers. So I would like to basically end the presentation here to see if anyone has any questions. Happy to answer. Thank you.
Very nice. Microphone right there in the center for questions.
Sorry, do I have any data?
Ma'am, could you please use the microphone?
Do you have any data related to greenhouse growing and your modular growing?
Yeah, I would say that, and there's a reason why, it's cheapest when you grow outdoor, a little bit better greenhouses, but obviously indoor is considered premium, but ours is like one step above the indoors, right? Greenhouses obviously has a lot of, positives, but I would say tons of negatives, right? Because it's actually slightly better than the outdoor, but ultimately it's still depending on the nature, right? And it's just very difficult to actually bring in that level of consistency, right? And that's why you see, product fluctuates from batches to batches of production. And I don't believe that if you're actually just growing for, big biomass, right? That's fine. But if you really want premium quality flowers, I would say that greenhouse is definitely not the way to go.
All right. Raymond Chang, Agrify. Everyone, give it up for Raymond. Thank you, Raymond. That was fantastic.